Good afternoon to you all. My name is Gareth Jenkinson. I'm a journalist from Cointelegraph. I've been covering the crypto and blockchain space for nearly 7 years now, so fair to say I've seen plenty of ups and downs, and I think we all have in general. Today's panel promises to be an enlightening one in the context of SDG goals and the utility of blockchain technology to help innovate and amplify environmental initiatives. Simgay, Daniel, and James are all involved in Solana-based projects and platforms that are leveraging the technology to drive a positive environmental impact and help businesses be part of what we call a regenerative economy. And to quote the Smith School of Enterprise and the Environment, a regenerative economy means moving away from extractive business models and unlocking the potential for positive contributions for nature and society. I think that is a great starting point for this topic, and I'd love our speakers to just give us a brief rundown of their project, Sunrise Stake, Eco Token, and Game Forest, which we've just heard a lot about. So yeah, I'm going to throw it over to you guys to give us a brief introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm James with Eco Token. What we have is a retirement platform on Solana where anyone can retire environmental credits directly on Solana and receive impact certificates, as well as fungible credits coming soon. And we also focus on pre-funding environmental projects to bring more credits online and focusing on economically sustainable and scalable projects.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Kelleher. I'm founder of Sunrise Stake. Sunrise Stake is a staking platform on Solana where your stake yield gets routed towards climate impact. So you can passively offset carbon, passively have a positive climate impact by staking on Sunrise Stake. We route some of our staking yield to different projects to ensure that we have a nice spread of climate impact, from offsetting carbon through Toucan to also Eco Token, and we have big plans to onboard other ones.
Hi everyone, I'm Simge, back here again. So with Game Forest, of course we have our dynamic NF3s where we channel direct funding to different projects in the global south, and our measure to earn technology with direct impact investing solutions where we mainly focus on measuring biodiversity data. But besides all this technological part, I think our core business is to create incentives that make environmental protection attractive for the local communities and also financially beneficial for them.
I think just as a starting point, maybe we can chat about regenerative economy on blockchain and what that looks like in comparison to traditional systems. James, you're probably best placed to talk about this one, just in terms of what you guys are doing with carbon credits in particular.
Sure, yeah. So the existing system is very top-down. So there's a huge barrier to entry to generate carbon credits, and it's actually just limited to carbon credits, whereas to have a true regenerative economy, I think you need to span past carbon and move into other sectors. So what blockchain enables is a bottoms-up approach where you can empower the actual project developer to create credits and add new revenue streams, because to create a credit class in the existing system is over $1 million. So small-scale projects just can't get credits online. And now with, Gregory couldn't make it to the trip, but with Regen Network has a peer review system that you can generate credits on. And that really empowers smaller scale adoption and credit creation and gives them a new revenue stream so that they can expand. And I think that blockchain also enables a ton of new applications and ways to develop consumer demand that just doesn't exist in the outside system. But I think we'll get to that a bit later in the panel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably worth addressing that term of regenerative for a moment, kind of like at a really high level. Sometimes, especially down in the weeds, we can get really focused on things like carbon markets and offsetting and credits and so on, because they're a vital part of it. But what does it mean? What actually is a regenerative economy, and what makes it different from the sort of economy that we live in right now? Most economies that we live in right now are extractive. They end up, the participants benefit from it, but everyone not participating loses out to some extent. There may be an externality like pollution, like carbon emissions that just aren't priced into the economy. So a regenerative economy is one where using that, taking part in that economy benefits someone outside of that economy, has a positive net externality. So a regenerative economy that, while using it, offsets carbon, for example, or helps with carbon reduction and carbon sequestration in the gainforest case, is one where the more people participate in it, the more it's used, the better it is for the planet, the better it is for the community, the better it is for our own mental health. Whatever the externality is, it has that positive effect. And to answer your question then, why is a blockchain a powerful tool for creating regenerative economies? It's because we have this power of smart contracts. We have this power of programmable money, and you can build the rules for an economy right down at the code level, at the protocol level, in a blockchain-based system, which, as James said, in a top-down fiat-based model is much harder to do. It's not impossible, but it doesn't allow us to collaborate in order to decide what the rules are. We have to petition the authorities, and they decide what the rules are. So I think that's the really vital part of how blockchain can help produce regenerative economies.
Simge, for you, the role of blockchain, especially in what you guys are doing with Gainforest.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I would like to build up on what's been said so far. One of the key traits of blockchain that we appreciate most at Gainforest is transparency. And in a regenerative economy, I think transparency is so key to everything that's being done, may it be the side effects or the externalities. But I also think growth should come. I mean, sometimes growth comes at like a price of something. Mm-hmm. So if we can highlight this transparently and show it out, it's great. But the common goods and all other products, like consumers have so much power in the decisions that they're taking. And if we can put the knowledge on the blockchain from the beginning to the end, we can provide this transparency and have an economy where everyone can see what's happening and take better decisions.
Just in terms of regenerative economy, I mean, Daniel, you touched on it very briefly, but in your own personal lives, in your personal perspectives, what is a regenerative economy and why is it important in this day and age, considering the global landscape in which we live?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're running into environmental issues left, right, and center. But I think that we have a regenerative economy as soon as acting in the best interest of the planet is profitable. So I think that's doable through environmental credits, but on the blockchain through verified things like what Gainforest is doing. That's how I think we reach that.
Yeah, another important part of regenerative economies is the resilience to shocks. And we, in the blockchain space, are not so resilient to shocks right now. We've seen this in the last few years. We need to build shock resistance and sustainability into our base layer, both at the protocol and in the sort of smart contracts and the tokens that we use, in the sort of DeFi applications that we use. We need to avoid chasing the highest yields, the quickest profit, the highest gearing and leverage, in order to maintain sustainability and shock resistance of the systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think actually, again, building on that, education is so key to all of this. So we can change anything that we are not aware about. So that's also something that we need to contribute to the larger system to make it work on a profitable way.
I really like this panel because it's got an interesting mix of projects that are doing very, very different things, but all with a similar purpose. James, maybe we can just start with EcoToken. It officially launched earlier in 2023. How have you gone about onboarding initial projects, and how have you used Solana to facilitate retiring carbon, water, and biodiversity credits? You've really gone further than just carbon.
Yeah, Solana's been key and just an incredible team to work with in blockchain. Obviously, the carbon neutrality of the chain is huge, and less than a Google search for a transaction is definitely helps you dispel all of the myths about blockchain being bad for the environment. And then we source our credits from Regen ledger, so on Cosmos, and then we've built a bridge between them. And we focus a lot on water credits. So we have a pilot project now that's boots on the ground treating water. And the water market's a bit different. It's actually a lot easier to calculate because it's water in, water out, test the difference, and you can put that data on the blockchain. It's all digital data. So it's a lot easier to verify, and creating a vibrant market on Solana is going to be more frictionless because of the easy transactions and all of the cool DeFi and gaming applications on there.
It's pretty nascent, though. I mean, the initial conversations that you have with prospective users and businesses that might partner with you, like how hard is it to knock on the door and get them to open it up?
I've found that the Solana community is incredibly receptive to things like that. People's eyes kind of light up, and they really like the idea of having an impact on chain and having real-world use cases and impacts from, what seems like a fictional game can have a real-world impact. It's pretty exciting. So it's been quite receptive.
Daniel, let's take a turn to the world of DeFi, I guess. Sunrise Stake's got a pretty unique proposition. It allows you to, use Solana staking yields to offset carbon emissions. Where'd you come up with the idea, and did you ever see, DeFi protocols having a positive effect on the environment?
Yeah. So I'd been a Solana engineer for quite a while, and then I came across the idea of what's called values-backed currencies. Most common one is carbon-backed currencies that doesn't really exist yet, but a lot of people are talking about it. And then so you start thinking about the idea of a currency being more than something that's just a transfer of value in itself, but has some kind of underlying property, in this case like a green or a regenerative property. And that kind of blended in my head then with the idea of liquid staking derivatives. So liquid staking tokens are the tokens you receive when you stake in a stake pool. And that exists on a lot of chains, like Lido have staked ETH. It's very common on Solana. So you have Marinade MSOL, you have Blaze as BSOL. And I just thought maybe you can blend those two ideas together. So you have a liquid staking derivative, which in itself is already a currency, because it's fungible, it can be transacted with. But it has this underlying property of having a positive effect on the environment. So simply by holding that currency in your wallet, you're having some positive environmental effect. And if by transacting that with other people, you're keeping that positive effect going. As soon as you unstake it, as soon as you convert it back to its base form, that effect is lost. So can you kind of build a kind of economy layer on top of a base economy that transacts with these values-backed currencies? And the great thing about doing this on Solana is two things. It's cheap and efficient to experiment like this on. And secondly, you know that it's going to reach the scale that you need it to for it to be successful. You're not going to hit a barrier where it's only useful if people are willing to deal with the patience of increased gas costs, increased transaction time. No, you can switch in and out of these currencies very smoothly, very cheaply, and that will still be the case when we reach a billion users.
Simga, I'm going to throw it over to you, and I know you just gave a really nice rundown of how Gainforest works, but maybe you can just chat a little bit about how donors on the ground are monitoring and tracking their environmental impact and the contributions and donations that they manage and receive through the technology that you guys have built.
Yeah, maybe one thing actually I haven't been able to mention so far is that trust is so key to what we are doing. Some of the communities in the beginning, when we start working with them, are literally sitting like this and like looking like this. They don't want to work with us. They're like, just go away. What do you want? And it takes some time. And the ice has to melt. And this is something. It works easier as we have local partners that we are working with, and we generate like a local community. We have a trusted local person who can also speak in their language. So that's something that's very important, because of course these communities have been exploited. They're afraid that maybe we have wrong incentives. They don't know us. And this is something, before the tech part comes in, is very crucial to the work that we are doing. And I'm sure it's you've been experiencing similar situations. And then with the tech, it's actually quite interesting. So of course, the younger people, they tend to be a little bit more open for it. Similar for women. Sometimes we struggle a little longer with a man to open up for the technology, start using the drone, taking pictures of the different plant species. So what we do is, again, coming back to the education part here, that we issue certificates for them once they have been trained to be measured to earn participants. So we know they know how to use the phone, they know how to use the drone, and it's not that everyone is on the same level. You can be like a phone user or a drone user or whatever works in the given specific local context. And that's something that proved out very well for us, because they feel very proud afterwards once they hold the diploma in their hand, and also afterwards, this is a proof that they can continuously earn something as they work with us.
Is it still quite difficult though to get communities onboarded and then make sure that they're actually recording accurate data, for your system?
So that one really depends. Again, it really depends on the local community and on the local circumstances. I wouldn't say, in general, it's easy. Also, as we grow, there is more and more media coverage, so that definitely improves getting things started.
You touched on the difficulty of onboarding the users. I mean, what kind of stakeholders do you need to go into rural communities in, Africa, South America, and knock on the door, and people that might not be very tech savvy, they might have a smartphone, but to open up the conversation itself and be like, hey, we're trying to help you manage and potentially improve your own circumstances, but also look after the environment where it matters most.
Yeah, actually one of the trickiest parts sometimes can be the local authorities. So first of all, there's different local incentives and different law. In some countries, we face a challenge where existing forests are not under protection. This means they can be cut down very easily, while forests that have been cut down or areas where there is reforestation are under protection by state law. And this is a big problem that we are facing, because the local communities, in a sense, have an incentive to cut down the trees and build a hotel, for example. And when we come in and try to give them money for protecting the forest, what we call the proof of care or proof of growth technology, that's part of the measure to earn technology, they get angry at us because they maybe know someone already who wants to purchase this land and build a hotel. That's one thing that one stakeholder that we're struggling with. And the other one, of course, all this remote sensing and drone technology, it's something that's very sensitive. In some parts of the world, it's easier to use a drone. In others, you need more permits. So that can be very expensive in the local currency. And these are challenges that we need to overcome.
Growing up, my father had different jobs in different African countries, and I lived in Uganda for quite a long time, and I've seen how beautiful those rainforests are. But like you say, some of those areas are protected and under governmental stewardship. Is that also a potential avenue for Gainforest, liaising with government institutions and getting them on board to use the technology to help drive a regenerative economy?
Yeah, we are working with the Paraguayan government. Silvino, who I introduced earlier, is literally at the foot of a national park. Mm-hmm. So our ultimate goal is to increase the size of the national park with Silvino's land. Okay, so you're knocking on the doors. It's just a matter of them opening it. James and Daniel, we were talking off stage just about Sunrise Stake and EcoToken partnering now. Maybe you can chat a little bit about that, because something quite exciting happened this week as well for you guys. Either one of you can take it.
Yeah. Like I said, Sunrise Stake, with the yield that is earned through the stake is sent to offsetting carbon. And as of Breakpoint, as of yesterday, we are now partnered with EcoToken, so a portion of that yield is going towards buying buying and retiring carbon on Solana natively. And so the first retirement credit.
Definitely worth a clap.
The first purely Solana native carbon retirement happened yesterday, and I'm really proud to be working with EcoToken on that.
Yeah, and thanks to Sol pumping a bunch, we got double the amount of credits retired.
I did want to touch on regenerative finance and regenerative economy. Does it mainly cater to institutions as opposed to retail users? I mean, a DeFi application like yours is obviously more retail facing, but from a top level down, it does seem like you need to involve institutions, and that's where the most adoption would come, especially if it's retiring carbon credits.
Yeah, so right now, yes, and that's because individuals, consumers, don't really have a reason to offset other than just general doing good, and it's very difficult if you're navigating a Web2 website on Ver or something like that. It's not intuitive on how to offset and what to do, versus if you're doing it on-chain, that's now, you have that retirement as a part of your digital identity forever. And that opens up the opportunity to projects that are doing an airdrop, for example, and they say, oh, this person's carbon neutral for the year. We'll send them a bit of an airdrop. And it can access token gating for different events and things like that. So there's that added incentive for a consumer to just degen into offsetting their carbon. And that's kind of what we want to tap into a Solana, and getting it into games and things where if you want to build a giant garden in the metaverse, well, you need to offset carbon in order to do that. And I think that's how blockchain can enable consumers getting into offsetting and into the carbon and environmental credit game.
So you're starting with the institutions first and then thinking about retail a bit more. And
exactly.
Yeah, okay. It's different for you then. It's the opposite, right?
Yeah, we're going for the memes. We're going for like the retail first. But like, so a regenerative economy is one of the challenges of pricing in externalities like the environment and like carbon emissions is that it's very difficult to measure your impact and put that on a balance sheet in any kind of auditable way. So companies are more and more being required to do that, especially larger organizations who fall under kind of regulatory requirements to offset their carbon, or at least to curb their emissions. So I kind of see the blockchain and the infrastructure that we're building on Solana as a form of a kind of a supply chain. So if you're built on top of Solana, and Solana is measuring its carbon emissions, and Sunrise Stake allows you to incentivize, for example, validators to reduce their carbon emissions. And DeFi protocols such as Orca have a climate fund that a part of their trading fees go into, and so on and so forth. Then you have a credibly net neutral supply chain and infrastructure that you're building your application upon. So as the onus on you as an institution becomes much lower then, because you're building on top of credibly carbon neutral infrastructure. And I think that makes a regenerative economy a reality outside of the Web3 world.
Simge, it's like a weird mix for Gainforest, I guess, because it's on the ground with people that actually own pieces of land and are stewards of their natural environment around them. But then it's also involving some institutions to a certain degree, or wider communities. So it really is like a mix for Gainforest. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's very, very bottom up, and then there are different organizations we work with. One thing we've been realizing on the retail side is, of course, besides like the offsetting interest, different larger companies have to offset their carbon footprint and become carbon neutral, is also deforestation-free supply chains. And this is something where we think definitely the whole market is moving into the right direction. Coming back to everything that we've been talking about earlier, what are the externalities? Like which product or what are we talking about? How can we take advantage of blockchain technology and bring in transparency there? So that's an area where with Gainforest we hope to contribute more going forward and support analysis on deforestation-free supply chains and put them on chain.
I mean, from the outside looking in and from everything that I've seen over the past 7 years working in the industry, blockchain is obviously multifaceted, and when it comes to different industries, there's so many different use cases. why blockchain for regenerative economies and regenerative finance?
Yeah, I mean, for one, the consumer side of having so many different ways to reward participants and that sort of thing. But from the verification side, and DPIN plays a big role, Gainforce plays a huge role in verifying the authenticity of those credits and bringing transparency to those credits. That is what attracts the institutions to blockchain credits. There's been a lot of pushback lately on carbon credits because there's been fraud that's happened, and that blockchain sort of solves all of that. And the more we develop the DPIN and refi infrastructure, the more sound those credits are going to be. And that's, I think, where we get the big shift of we say, hey, governments, we've actually solved your problem here. Here you go, adopt this. And that's how I think refi kind of takes off into mainstream.
I mean, with Sunrise Stake, I mean, it wouldn't be possible without blockchain, right? Is there like a Web 2 or a traditional system that's similar, that's doing something?
I mean,
like
you can, if there are banks that put part of the interest into ESG funds or something, if you trust them and you like that model, then that's fine. The idea then of your bank account there somehow being fungible through a liquid derivative coin, I haven't seen. That would be really interesting. But no, I mean, that sort of stuff is only possible on blockchain, and to a large extent only possible on Solana. That's one of the things that really drives me to think that blockchain and Solana have a lot of power in the refi, in the climate space, is the ability for people to experiment with ideas and create proof of concepts that then might be marketable outside of the Web3 space. We have, we've been around for a year. We have a bunch of engineers and content creative providers that are pitching ideas and building them in the context of Sunrise. And this is great. We can just basically ask anyone to come and join in with that and contribute. And I don't think that sort of model is possible in the kind of traditional financial world. You can't just kind of rock up to a bank and say, hey, I kind of want to use your API to build something cool and regenerative. We hosted, Sunrise co-hosted a refi hackathon in Berlin there about 6 months ago, and a bunch of people came out of the woodwork that we'd never met before and started building and pitching these products, some using Sunrise infrastructure, some not. And that's extremely powerful. And yeah, the other thing that's just simply not possible outside of blockchain is this ability, like I said earlier, to rewrite the rules, to literally take from the bottom up, from the protocol through the application there, rewrite and redefine how these things work through smart contracts.
Go ahead, James.
One more thing to add to that, you can also, another application is accepting payments in GSOL, and that's another thing we didn't mention before, but next week you'll be able to offset in GSOL as well.
Okay. Awesome.
There we go.
Yeah.
Simge, when it comes to Gainforest, like when it all first started, did you think initially we need a blockchain-based solution for this, or could it have been something more centralized? What were the considerations?
Very, very good question.
My brothers ask me this a lot, why does this need blockchain? And it is a pertinent question.
There are different reasons, of course, for the blockchain. The key reason are the smart contracts in this particular context, because when we work with our local partners and they verify, upload the environmental data into the data uploading platform, and this gets verified by AI, of course, we need a smart contract. I don't need to further explain this. Being reason number one. Reason number two, of course, very soon, Silvino doesn't have a bank account. Nandutu doesn't have a bank account. Some of our project partners, they have a bank account, but they live 5 hours by bus if, again, the weather is good from the local bank. All these kind of challenges, and we need, moving forward, we need to embrace it, right? This is the new technology. Why, if I can have USDC, I want to carry US dollars with me. So why, if I can drive an automatic car or a self-driving car, I want to have a shift stick. Of course, sometimes maybe I do, right? Just for the nostalgic part of it and the fun of it. But it's not going to be what I embrace going forward. And if we move forward like this, everyone who's in the global south should equally have access to the blockchain technology, especially Solana.
That actually reminds me of something. So there's a lot of different aspects to regenerative finance and regenerative economies. And we actually have an organization or an umbrella term, Solana Refi. There's a whole bunch of organizations, not just the three of ours, that are representing Solana here at this event. We have a booth in the base camp, the community base camp, where you can go and meet some of us. So people like Coral Tribe, for example. And another part of regenerative economy is this idea of bringing power to the unbanked. So another organization I work with called Civic is bringing decentralized identity to Solana and enabling payments to the unbanked and democratizing access to identity services around the world. So there's a huge range of different topics and of different concerns that all play a part in building this sort of new economy that we're working towards.
I guess like the final question is, I mean, how do you go as an industry, whether it's Solana or the wider, Web3 space, converting traditional institutions and saying, hey, this is a solution that you can really benefit from and you should really give it a chance. I mean, a blockchain-based solution for retiring carbon credits, like you said, there is a barrier to entry. You need to be a big institution. It's like $1 million for, to retire a carbon credit in the traditional sense. How do you tell them, like, hey, give us a chance here,
Yeah, well, that's to create the credit is the $1 million. But yeah, right now, for example, Microsoft already purchased quite a significant amount of blockchain native credits. And I think the institutions are actually dying for this. They want to move past carbon. All of these institutions have pledged water neutrality by 2030, but they're forced to build their own water infrastructure because they don't have a verified quality credit system. They're interested in biodiversity credits, and I think the way we get them on is by bringing reputable not-for-profits and bringing them to produce their credits on-chain because they have more flexibility in how they create their credit. For example, we had chatted with OceanWise, and they just don't want to create a carbon credit. They want a marine biodiversity credit. Well, there's about to be a marine biodiversity credit on the blockchain in about 3 months. So that seems like a perfect avenue. And that will draw in institutions because you have that brand value and a verified credit on-chain. So I think that'll just snowball over time, and then it will gradually shift, especially with higher verification standards as well.
You've got the composability of blockchain. I mean, you can
exactly.
Everything's designable. Simge, I guess the beauty about Gainforest. I mean, I went and I played around with the website. It looks beautiful. You've got like a working. If any institution went and had a look at that, they can say, okay, this is clearly something that's already working. Does it sell itself?
It really depends on the context, of course. Yeah. Sometimes easier, sometimes more difficult. Coming back to the question on how to introduce the blockchain part, what we found has been very beneficial is that, especially with carbon credits or biodiversity credits, anything that's impact-oriented, like the science and the knowledge we have about all these measurements is moving forward. And when we issue a traditional credit, we are like stuck in this time. There is no possibility to go backwards and do backwards computation of the data. And that's where we found with more traditional conservation organizations or companies that are having a huge, want to be sensitive about their image or their prestige when it comes to their carbon neutrality, are very interested in the blockchain solutions because all the data is on chain. And if there is a new insight about the computation with the data that's available, the value of the credit or the impact can be reevaluated, and you can match up to the gap that has been in there. So this is, for example, one of the cases that we are working with. And of course, at the current stage, we invest a lot into our partners to bring them on chain, to make them, AI by now has become a little easier. There was enough skepticism around it before, but thanks to ChatGPT, we changed that. So currently, yes, we invest a lot into our partners to make them take the step and move forward and be brave.
Okay. See, we've got 10 seconds left, so I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you all very much for your thoughts, and I think more importantly what you're doing to drive regenerative economies and regenerative finance. It's hugely interesting, and as a journalist, it's definitely something I'm going to start looking into a bit more, and really it deserves more coverage and more attention. So, ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause.
Thank you.